Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Disney Resorts Podcast. My name is Kenny Hayes, and I am joined alongside, as always, by my good friend and brother-in-law, Walt Ramirez.
Hey, everybody. Hey, Ken. How are you?
Good. I'm doing good. How are you?
Relaxed after a wonderful Disney trip. Ready to go back.
Are we? I think we are both having the Disney blues right now.
Yeah, a little bit. Definitely a little bit.
So, folks, before we begin, we'll go over this week's agenda. This is going to be part one of Walter's and mine's trip report. Little did you know, the past couple months we've been plotting to surprise Walt's wife for her 50th birthday anniversary at Walt Disney World. Then we are going to jump into a Citricos review. We dined there as well. We're going to briefly talk about Disney just announced fall discounts if you're a Disney Visa card holder at certain select Disney resorts. And then, as always, we'll wrap up with what we currently miss at Walt Disney World. So, Walt, we all know your favorite resort is Beach Club, and that's where you vacationed at in this current trip. Now, for our listeners, and all of our followers out there, you were supposed to do a split stay, I believe, originally, right? You had Caribbean Beach and Beach Club.
That's correct. I did originally have a split stay, and I was able to actually get a room at the Beach Club for the entirety of the trip. So I was actually pretty lucky not to have to do the check-out, check-in scenario twice. So I was definitely happy about that.
Yeah. So let's get right into it. We all know by now Beach Club's your favorite resort. You guys were there for a full 7 days. I know because they accommodated you, you had to switch rooms from your original room. They moved you to a different location after several days because they were able to accommodate you not going to Caribbean Beach. Now, when you showed me the rooms that you guys stayed at, they were different. They were both studios, but I believe your original studio had the 2 beds, and the one they moved you to, I believe, had the bed and the couch.
Correct. So the original room had a twin bed, and the second room that I moved to had a king-size bed with a couch. The first room was definitely much more spacious, believe it or not, with the twin. I definitely preferred that over the second room with the king bed. The second room, the bathroom, the sink was in the actual. It was double sink, but it was actually in the bathroom. So there was no room for anyone to really. You couldn't really use the double sink because you couldn't really fit in the bathroom. There was literally no room at all between the sink and the toilet. It was just a really odd placement. The first room was excellent. The sink was outside of the bathroom, so there was a lot more space.
Yeah, like your standard studio.
Again, I mean, I was just happy to not have to check out. So I kind of, took it because that's all they had available. But if I had my choice, I definitely would not have stayed in that room. I didn't feel the room was worth the rate that they were charging for that hotel. From what I gathered, that room was an extension of a DVC room that was probably a 2-bedroom, and that was the additional bedroom on the other side of it, I believe. But again, I mean, the room was, still Beach Club and still a very nice room. But as I mentioned to you before we started, one of the disappointing things about Beach Club's stay this time was I felt that there's definitely an issue with the overall upkeep of the facility. I think there are a lot of areas that they need to really work on. I understand that they're short-staffed in many areas, but I think that they really need to focus on the little things that aren't being maintained to the level that they have been in the past at that resort. We noticed at the pool area, and I think you noticed it also. There's a bridge that connects a part of the pool to what they call an island in the middle of the pool.
Mm-hmm.
And that area was actually closed off for refurbishment. And in typical Disney style, they had it all blocked off with like white curtains. And so you really couldn't see it. But my issue was that in the 7 days that I was there, I didn't see a single person working on it or any work being done whatsoever on it. So I don't understand how long that project's going to take. And I didn't see a single person walking around picking up towels or trash or just normal daily maintenance to straighten things up. We found several times the following morning trash underneath our pool deck chairs, which you would never have ever seen that in the past. So that was something that I was disappointed in. Housekeeping was disappointing. Now, I'm not going to knock housekeeping because they work very hard. And I think it's just a policy of Disney with DVC where you get a cleaning every fourth day. I paid for the room, so I'm not part of DVC. I was expecting to get a cleaning every day, or at least the trash emptied every day. In my 7 days there, it happened just one time. And as a little funny side note, I tried calling the front desk on our last night to get a wake-up call in the morning because we had a really early flight out of Orlando Airport, and I wanted to get a wake-up call. And when I called the front desk, I discovered that there's no one at the front desk, that it's actually outsourced to some call center, because they asked me which resort I was staying at. I was kind of shocked by that. So in the past, there was always someone at the front desk to answer any kind of questions or any issues you might have. So that's another cutback by Disney.
Well, it's funny you bring that up, Walt, because I generally, the first time I called, and we'll get into it later in this show and in future shows, my family stayed right across from Walter. We stayed at Boardwalk. And several times I called down, and it was funny, like you said, each time, one time it was for toiletries, one time it was for coffee, and my mother-in-law was with us, and she gets cold and she wanted an extra blanket. So I go into the room and I make the phone call down below, and they says, "Thank you for calling Disney guest service." Not guest services, Disney housekeeping. And all I did was, "How you doing?" I said my name, and I said, "I'm at room," I think it was 3126. And they're like, "Okay, what can I help you with?" And I told them, I said, "Can I just need some coffee, a couple blankets?" And they're like, "Okay, what resort are you staying at?" So now I knew, because a couple other times throughout the trip I called, it was immediately, "Hey, how you doing? This is so-and-so from room 3126 at the Boardwalk Villas." And then it wasn't an issue. Now, I will give credit where credit's due. Every time I called and I asked for something, within 10, 15 minutes, they were knocking at my door. I don't know how that worked for you. I didn't have to wait for long. The cast members were very friendly, very gracious. But yeah, it is weird, because in the past you would call and get someone at the front desk, and now they've just totally
Correct.
subbed it out. I mean, you mean to tell me that you don't know what resort I'm calling from? Because they've never asked me that before, and maybe we could be wrong.
Yeah,
but I call down because I love their coffee. I get extra every day, and creamers, so I'm used to calling all the time. And this is the first trip where they've actually asked, "What hotel are you staying in?" So it's funny that you brought that up, because I thought the same thing. I remember the first time when I hung up the phone, I'm like, "Well, where am I calling? Where's the call going to?" And then I was waiting there, and I'm like, I'm probably going to wait a while for what I called about. But lo and behold, like I said, the cast members were great. They were friendly. They actually, the one night, we already came back to the room, and I called downstairs, and they were bringing up coffee and creamer for the morning. And we already put, I didn't realize my wife put the do not disturb on the door. And all of a sudden the phone rang about 15 minutes later saying that it was housekeeping. And we noticed we have someone at your door, but we didn't want to knock because you had the do not disturb on. So that was very good. They were very, like you said, we're not picking on them. The people that they have working are doing an excellent job. And like I said, we didn't have to wait. And it was very courteous of them to give the phone call because we could have been sleeping, whatever. So like I said, I have no complaints there whatsoever. But like I agree with you, it is weird calling a number and you don't know where it's going. It's going somewhere. Someone's answering the phone. They were very polite. But yeah, it was definitely weird saying, well, where are you staying?
Yeah, it was definitely odd. And then when we left the last day, we came down obviously very early in the morning to leave, and it was really strange to walk through the lobby and not see anyone at all. Not a single human being at the desk or an employee anywhere, not a bellhop, no one. I mean, it was completely abandoned. So, I'm sure there was probably a bellhop there if I had called, but didn't see anybody. And it's not the first time I've ever left early. Mm-hmm. So, but it is the first time I've never seen anyone before. So that it appears to me anyway, and I think to you that there was another employee cutback in that scenario.
Well, what I've noticed too, Walt, in the refurbishments, and it hasn't taken place yet in the beach club lobby or the boardwalk lobby yet, but I've noticed when I stayed at Saratoga when they refurbed the main lobby, there's not as many desks anymore, and there's not as many people there checking in because they want you to do the check-in through the My Disney Experience app so you can go directly to your room. So you see that they're phasing that aspect out. They don't want you to go to the lobby. Like you said, same thing at Boardwalk because, and we're going to get into that in a minute, because the whole trip, after months and months of planning, it almost didn't happen, thanks to Mother Nature. By the skin of our teeth, we both made it down there. But by the time our first night, Walter and his wife got there several hours before us because we got delayed for several hours in Newark. And we had to meet them.
And we were delayed as well.
Yeah, you were delayed as well. And then we were supposed to arrive, I think, somewhere around 7 o'clock. Actually, I'm sorry. We were supposed to arrive around 4 o'clock. By the time we landed, it was around roughly 7:30.
After 7.
Yeah, after 7. Then we had an issue with our rental car. The paperwork not being ready. Good old budget. And from there, we decided, because you were able to move our dining reservation back at Citricos, so we literally left the airport, drove directly to Grand Floridan to complete the surprise. But I know we jumped off topic real quick. But when I was going back to the main lobbies, like, we recently also, and we'll talk about it in a future show, we also had dining reservations at California Grill this trip. My trip back in January, I had reservations at Steakhouse 71. So we have both been to the Contemporary several times. That lobby refurb is now complete. By the way, it looks beautiful. I think they did a great job in the lobby at the Contemporary. But another thing you see, less desks, less employees, because they want everything digital. They just want you to check in and just go right to your room. And I know it's the world we now live in, so we're going to have to get used to it. But it all goes back to that Disney service. And the more and more they continue to cut the way they are, even the less interaction you're getting with the cast members, who do a fabulous job. But yeah, I totally agree with you, Walt. Now, real quick, so you were there for 7 days at Beach Club. You discussed the differences between the two rooms. The original room, it seems like you were in a cash room, and then when they were able to accommodate you, they moved you into a DVC room. What did you think of both rooms? Did both of them need refurbs? Do you think that they both need a refresher? Do you think they were, spot on? What's your thoughts on it?
I think the first room was better than the second room, than the DVC room. It could have just been the room they gave me. So I'm not going to disparage all of the DVC rooms, but the second room that I was in definitely needed a refurb. It had dated carpeting. The first room kind of also had some wear and tear on, not wear and tear, but you could tell that the carpeting was not brand new carpeting. But overall, I felt that the first room was in very good condition. The second room, aside from the strange layout of the bathroom and having the double sink in the bathroom itself, the room itself was also in very good condition. But again, if you're going to nitpick, the carpeting definitely needed an upgrade or an update. And you know my feeling about carpeting in hotel rooms. I'm not a fan of carpeting. I believe that the laminate flooring that they've used in other resorts is much more practical. It's easier to clean and maintain, and it just doesn't give you that, it doesn't retain odors like carpeting does. So especially with air conditioning running 24/7 in Florida, and in humidity. So, but I think that overall, I would say that the rooms were good, in good condition overall. But if you're gonna, nitpick on the little things, I would say that definitely the carpeting needed to be updated. I felt that also in the hallways, which in the past, if most of you out there are familiar with how Disney would operate in the past, any little nick or scuff on a wall, you would always see someone out there from maintenance painting it. Or fixing it up or patching it. Not so much this time. A lot of scratches and nicks on the walls. Didn't really see anyone in the entire week I was there maintaining anything. So that was something that in the past I would always notice because I'd always see the little, wet paint sign on the wall with, stitch on it or something like that. And now it seems like that's another thing that has been cut back. And I noticed also, I don't know if you noticed this over at Boardwalk, but maintenance, as far as like landscaping, was being done in the middle of the day. Whereas in the past, I remember going there and landscaping was done very early in the morning.
Yep.
But I mean, even if it was done, say at 8 or 9, but by 9 o'clock they were done, and you didn't see a landscaper until the next day early in the morning again. Now it doesn't really matter. It's all hours of the day. They're out there working, which takes away from that Disney aura and experience that you've had in the past, and definitely from when I first started going.
Well, my room this time at Boardwalk, we had a pool view of which would be Boardwalk's equivalent of a quiet pool. So, but I did not see any landscapers out. I saw no one cutting the grass. It was done. I mean, everything was neat and in order. But no, there was no grass where my view was. So, and I didn't see no landscapers either. But you're 100% right. You generally saw them in the mornings. You would always hear them cutting the grass, or they're laying, or they're trimming the bushes, or they're laying, not the topsoil, the mulch. But
mulch, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. You're 100% right. You see them more now during more of the afternoon when people are moving up and around. Then it was kind of like first thing in the morning. So like by the time you got ready, you went to breakfast, you came back, you went to the park, they were kind of done in those areas. And now it seems like they changed up their time schedule with that as well. But let me ask you again with the room, because I know a lot of people, everyone gets hung up with Disney coffee makers. So what kind of coffee makers? Because what drives me nuts with Disney is that they'll do they have Mr. Coffee in most of them, but then they'll refurb a certain resort. Like I stayed at Coronado Springs right before the pandemic, and they put Keurigs in. And you go over here to like a Riverside, and they have those ones where it's like the small flat. It's not even a pod, but it's like kind of like, like the regular size filters that we get in the room now. But it was a very small 1 cup version of that. They have that over in Port Orleans, Riverside. And then you go somewhere else, and it's what cracks me up. And when you run something, and it's funny, even with the bathrooms, I thought the same thing. Every bathroom you go into, and just like these rooms, you have all these different coffee makers, right? You go into the bathrooms, and some have this type of air dryer. Some have another type of air dryer. Some have no air dryers at all. Some of them have the paper towel dispensers, and they range. You could get all different types. And I've always thought to myself, why Disney just does not buy one particular brand for coffee maker, for your air dryers, and it's cost effective. That's why you do it. You buy it in bulk. So it's always it's always throwing me off that, like, well, okay, this resort has this resort doesn't have this. And we're not even talking about value to deluxe, because you could go to different deluxes and get different types of coffee pots. And it's always baffled my mind why they've done
it's
that.
Inconsistent.
But
in my room I had a Keurig.
Okay. And both rooms were Keurigs?
I believe so. I know for sure the second room was a Keurig.
Okay. That's good.
Because they had the nice 50th anniversary coffee pots. Okay. That I neglected to bring home for you, because I thought about it afterwards and I was like, oh shoot, I should have grabbed a few and brought them home.
Well, if you remember earlier in the show, I talked about it. I call house services every day, because I'm going to let the cat out of the bag again, and we'll get into that in a second. I bring them home. You're going to take away my soaps. You're going to take away everything else. I'm bringing the 50th anniversary coffee home, which I do like. I enjoy it a lot. I think it's a great flavor. And for anyone who knows me, I'm a big coffee guy. But you're taking my soaps away, I'm taking your coffee home, and I'm ordering it every day. But Walt, real quick, back to when we were talking about calling down and ordering. They're even nitpicking now. In the past, you would call and say, hey, can you just send up some coffee, some creamers, some sugars? Yep, no problem. Now when I called this trip, they were like, well, how many would you like? How many creamers do you want? How many sugars do you want? They wanted me to give them an exact number. And I says the 3 people in my room all like their coffee light. So I said, just send me a lot of creamers. Well, how many? Like, they were stuck on, and that's probably them being told, well, if they want creamers, you're going to give them exactly what they want. Just send me a lot of creamers. That's it. Just send me coffee, creamers.
Right, exactly.
Guess what? When I leave and it's not open, you can reuse it anyway. So what's the difference? Like, we're nitpicking creamers and coffee and sugar. But yeah, so that's good.
And this is post-pandemic, so they can't use that as an excuse, So
No. But that's good though, because I really think that all the hotels should go to a Keurig. It's very easy. You drop the pot in, and you call it a day. But I was curious about that, because
and I agree with you as far as like the bathrooms go. Like you're saying, the lack of consistency on like, say, a mirror or a hair dryer or something like that. You shouldn't base that on how much you paid for the room.
Yeah, I totally agree.
That shouldn't be a factor. And not that we've talked about this, but one of the things I've noticed between the differences between the moderates and the deluxe resorts is the quality of the towels. And that's another issue. Why is that even a factor? I mean, a towel's a towel. Whether I paid, $400 a night for a room or whether I paid $200 a night, shouldn't matter that I get a cheaper towel or not having an amenity in the bathroom. There should be a consistency to that.
Well, it's funny that you brought up the towels, because in one of our previous episodes, we discussed about how DVC and cash, the different services you get for housekeeping. And I said, I'm going to let the cat out of the bag. Every time I've stayed, they've always picked up. If I put the towels on the floor, I have fresh towels when I come back, and they've always done it. I know in their regulations it says they don't. Well, lo and behold, our trip, stay at Boardwalk, put the towels on the floor. We go out for the first day, come back, no garbage picked up, towels on the ground. I was like, by the end of the second day, one of the gentlemen was out in the hallway, the cast members, and my wife asked him for fresh towels, and he was more than happy. He gave us the towels, but this was the first time I had to ask, so I let the cat out of the bag.
Yeah.
So I probably did it again before.
Yeah, that's disappointing.
It is disappointing, like we said, and we're not gonna dwell on it, but DVC members do get treated differently, and how much we spend year over year, year after year. It's crazy that they just can't make your room up, but it is what it is. My favorite saying, it is what it is.
And I briefly saw a comment on one of the other, on another website, Disney website, where one of the commentators said, that now I feel like when I go on vacation, I'm working for Bob Chapek because I have to do everything. I have to make my park reservations. I have to make my dining reservations. I have to make my, like you said, there's no interaction with your room. You go right to your room. You don't check in anymore. So there's so many things, so much human interaction that now they kind of dump all of this into your lap that you have to do, but you're still paying for more than you did before. It just feels like it's like a job almost sometimes.
I totally agree.
So that's really one of my frustration.
Totally
and
agree.
I thought that person actually nailed it right on the head with that comment. To move on to our dining experience at Citricos. So Ken had the short ribs, which I have been recommending to him now for months and months and months. And I think he was in a little bit of doubt about my recommendation until his fork hit the short rib. So you could tell us about your experience with your short rib.
So the first night we had dining reservations at Citricos. I've never eaten there before. I've seen a lot of people talk about it, including my brother-in-law. They raved about it. It was recently refurbished. It has a kind of a Mary Poppins layover, but it's not like gaudy at all. I think they did it's very elegant. It's very nice. I know something you like as well, Walt. The kitchen is open, so you can actually see all the preparation and the cooking going on there. I took Walt's recommendation and had the short ribs, and we're going to talk about it over our shows, future shows about all our dining. It was phenomenal. The short ribs were phenomenal. Everything we had there, at least that I had, and my wife said the same thing. She's like, when you guys go on your show, you tell them. So did our mother-in-law. Everybody enjoyed their meal there. The service was great. The first night, and I'll say it, Walt, and I know you'll back us up. We can't thank Disney enough because they worked with Walter. They accommodated us. They knew the situation going on of us flying down and then being delayed and trying to get there to make the reservation, which we didn't think for a long time we were. We basically closed Citricos, and they stayed open, and we were able to eat our meal, but it was excellent. I'm going to tell you now, if you have a trip upcoming, definitely go to Citricos. I can't say enough good things about it. And like Walter and I know, and we're always very honest with you, and some people will think, well, your guys are nitpicking Disney. But we all know what Disney was and the service that they've always provided. I could tell you, at least speaking for myself, at Citricos, you got that Disney service. You got that the portion sizes were great. The food was great. Everything about it was great. It took a very, very long day, and it ended it perfect. It could not have ended a better way. So my recommendation on Citricos, if you're going anytime soon, absolutely book it. Book it twice. What did you think, Walt?
Yeah, and it's easily a restaurant that's always available. It doesn't get the love that the other monorail loop restaurants get. Certainly not the same kind of recognition that Grand Floridian gets. And it is just a very, very, like you said, it's an elegant restaurant, and it's a restaurant that has quality food consistently. And that's the important part. Some restaurants on Disney property are not consistent with the quality of their food. This restaurant is consistently good. You can always count on having a wonderful meal, and the views are still, they're very good views. If you get a window seat, and it's just a very good meal. I had short ribs. My wife had the house-made rigatoni, which was very good. And I think you're going to probably be dropping a video of that in there soon, so that everyone can kind of see what all the plates look like. I believe your wife had the tilefish, which she thought it was so good that she called it the fish.
The fish, yes. She's going to love you, Walt.
She gave it a French twist to it. But again, I just think that restaurant does not get the recognition it deserves. in terms of the quality of the food that they put out. It's you can go on there any day of the week and pretty much get a reservation. Whereas other restaurants, as you know, you have to make reservations 3 months in advance to practically get what you want. And this restaurant consistently has availability. They are closed on Monday nights and Tuesday nights, which is kind of odd. So if you're there on those nights of the week, they are closed. So
I didn't know that.
You wouldn't be able to get in. But again, the quality of the dining experience was excellent. And as you said, I thank the chef because they stayed open past closing for us, which was really nice of them to do. It did turn a day that could have potentially been a disaster into a very nice dining experience.
It was close. Well, it was close to being a disaster.
It couldn't have been could not have possibly been any closer. And we're not going to bore people with the details of it, but it was literally to the second of it completely falling apart, and the surprise that had been built up for 3+ months would have gone away, thanks to the weather in Newark and the weather in Orlando and the air traffic control that delayed us for quite a while.
Yes, they did.
But we got in and we had a great time.
But so, like you said, I have a video real quick. And anybody who's watching us over on our YouTube page, and we're going to put up just a real quick video we put together of Citricos, a little bit of the ambiance and what it looks like, and some of the entrees that we had. So we're going to pull that up on the screen right now. That was a nice touch. So, Walt, before we wrap up on the Citricos, if we had to do a 1 through 5, and maybe we'll start this with our dining reviews moving forward, and it doesn't have to be, it could be a 1.5, 1.4, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Between a 1 through 5, what would you give Citricos?
A 6.
Really? Really?
Yeah. I think they're at the top of my list, and you and I talked about this, and we could delve into this on another show. But my top 3 restaurants at Disney are Le Cellier, Grand Floridan, and Citricos. And as I told you in a private conversation that we had, I thought that Citricos might be cracking the top 2. Le Cellier on this last trip kind of fell off a notch for me, but I'm very, very fond of Citricos. And I also love Narcoossee's also. Never had a bad meal at that restaurant either, but right now I think that's my top 3.
You know what? I'm just pulling something up on the screen. I'm going to say, I'm going to go 5. You went 6, I'm going 5. It was slam dunk. It's slam dunk. Walt went over 100.
It was.
It was a slam dunk. Like I said, we can't thank them enough for the service. That was true Disney service by accommodating our whole party and our whole family for a very special day after a very, very, very long day we all had. And they locked it up. They delivered 110%. And like Walter and I said, if you're going,
Absolutely.
make sure you make room for Citricos, and just make sure, do not book them on a Monday or Tuesday because you won't get it. But
yeah, exactly. Real quick, I wanted to just really quickly say before we wrap up here with the things you miss. On the next episode, I think I'm going to start out with talking. First, I want to apologize to everybody on previous episodes when I slightly touted how wonderful Genie Plus was. I will apologize for that because it is hideously bad, and we will definitely talk about that on our next episode in more detail. So things that I miss, and I will tell you that I miss the late nights. I miss having that after dinner, being able to go to a park, or just having the late nights available. It seems like now Disney at 10:30, 11 o'clock is in like lockdown. And you just don't get that late night experience. And I understand that for folks who have children and little children, that's past their time. They're in bed by then. But for those of us that don't have kids, we like to stay up late. It just is not the same vibe that there was, say, 5 years ago, where you could go to a park until 1 or 2 a.m. And there was always something to do. And, now you go to dinner, and after dinner, you're basically back in your room and you're, sitting there watching TV. And I could do that at home. I'm on vacation. I like to stay active. And, I just don't, and even like smaller things like going to the pool, let's say, and just sitting and reading, or maybe even, going to the pool. Pools close at 11 o'clock. So you feel uncomfortable being there late into the night. And I understand why they do that. They don't want people, for safety reasons, with not having lifeguards around and that sort of thing. But I don't even necessarily want to jump in the water. I just want to be able to kind of like sit and relax. And you just kind of feel awkward because there's really no one around, because you feel like you're not supposed to be there. And that's something that I definitely miss. And how about you, Ken? I know that we discussed this earlier.
It's funny. We discussed it earlier. And what I noticed on our most recent vacation, which was only a week ago, I got up in the morning and I was going to make my cup of coffee, and we stayed at a 1-bedroom villa, and they had the coffee stacked up, and they have your, a little bit of your creamers and your sugars and that. And in the past, you would always have your Walt Disney World coasters. And I realized over my last several trips, I have not been getting the Walt Disney World coasters. And why I remember this is because, no, I'm not a klepto. But I would take the Walt Disney World coasters and put them in, and my wife would laugh at me, and she said, "There's something wrong with you." And I would put them in, and they'd go down in the man cave, and they would sit there, and I would use them. But so they no longer give the coasters. And then when I thought about it shortly after, when I actually had to use the phone to call downstairs to the lobby, they no longer give a pen or pad anymore. You used to have a pen and pad by both phones. So if you had, like where we stayed in a 1-bedroom villa, you had a pad and paper, and it had the Walt Disney World logo on it. So no pad and paper, and no coasters.
And it was just a cheap Bic pen. That's all it was. That said Walt Disney World on the side.
That's it. And I would take that. Yes, I took it again, and I would slide it in, and I take the pen, and I take the pad, and maybe that's the reason why they did it.
I did too.
I did too, and I still have a couple laying around. But like you said, they were Bic pens. How much was it costing them? They print the logo on it. They were doing probably tens of thousands at one clip, because I noticed when we paid our tabs every time at dinner, that same pen was in their hands. They're just no longer giving it to us. But it was a nice convenience, because if someone called you, or even if you called me on my cell phone, it was a quick place to take a note. And now you don't have that. So it's just, it's a lot of the small things that they keep picking and picking and picking and picking at, that it starts now getting larger and larger and larger. And you're like, wow, they've really taken away a lot. But I agree with you 100%, Walt, on what you miss. We're not saying that every night has to be 12, 1 o'clock, but when you have people like us, you're leaving the Northeast. we're stuck inside all winter. When I go down there, I want to be outside. I want to experience the nice weather. And by the way, I know we're wrapping in a minute. We had beautiful weather. The weather there was beautiful. I was there for 5 days. Walter was there for 7. I think it only rained the last night you were there. Well,
no, actually, it was the night the day we arrived. It was
okay.
raining,
Yes,
but we didn't see another raindrop the rest of the trip.
It was absolutely beautiful. High 60s in the morning, mid to upper 80s in the afternoon. Beautiful blue skies. Couldn't have asked for anything better. But yes, I totally agree with Walt. Please bring back extra magic. Bring back extra magic. Hire these people back. Give all of us Disney fans and Disney addicts, give us a little bit of it back. Because you give us these select days where it's like, okay, well, if you're staying at a deluxe resort and you're paying $700-800 a night, we'll keep it open until 11 o'clock for you. Really? You could do better than that, and we know you could do better than that.
And we'll talk about that. Absolutely. We'll talk about that on the next show because I did have that experience with being at the Deluxe. I did have a late night at Hollywood Studios and at Epcot. So We'll talk about that. But like you said, it's little dribs and drabs of things that they're giving you as opposed to, providing that, the way they used to. Mm-hmm. And it's really.
But they did. So I think that's a good place. Yeah, they did. I think it's a good place to wrap, Walt. What do you say? Yep. That's going to do it, folks, for this episode of the Disney Resorts Podcast. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you again real soon with another edition. Take care, everybody.